Kate, welcome to the new Female Leader Show. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm a little frazzled, but I'm happy to be here, and it's perfect because um, I think when we speak about leadership, there is no such thing as perfect environments and being
No,
able to control everything, in our environment. And
exactly.
so, yeah, I think like I'm just out of my environment with my kids, so it's a little frazzled, but I'm very happy to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you here today. And before we start, I would love to properly introduce you to our listeners. So here we go. You're an entrepreneur, best-selling author, speaker, and a mom. You've built a very impressive multimedia educational platform that reaches really hundreds of thousands globally. And you're committed to your mission to support ambitious women to light up the world without burning themselves out. Well, your book, Do Less, was named as one of the 100 best time management books of all time. And your work has been featured by The Today Show, The New York Times, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Women's Health, Glamour, and many more. I'm super excited that you're here today. I've read your book Do Less in the summer of 2019. It's your second book, and I have to admit I almost highlighted the whole book. So so I have so many questions. So I would like to dive in immediately, and I would love to start by reading a quote from your book, Do Less, that says, "Women don't need to lean in to fix the system. We need to lean out." So that the system that don't support our well-being can collapse and new ones can be formed. Wow. All right. So, what do you actually mean by this? And can you share some insights of your own experience?
When you read that quote to me now, it
Right.
feels a little bit prescient in terms of what we have been experiencing globally with the pandemic and the way our work world has shifted as a result, and
Yeah.
healthcare and all sorts of things. And so, um, when I wrote that, I what I meant is basically like if we stop buying into corporate structures that don't support human health and well-being, if we stop buying into the business models that are profits over people,
Hmm.
if we stop participating in the systems that don't serve us, then if enough people stop participating, the systems have to change, right? Usually it's
Right.
financial pressure because they stop working because not enough
Yeah.
people are buying into them. And so that's what I meant. And
Hmm.
really this whole concept of, you know, the whole idea of leaning in, while I totally understand, um, to me is just sort of trying to win at a game that we really never designed, and we don't want the prize anyway.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like let's just get out of there and do something different.
Yeah. And that also links a lot to the fact that you really, yeah, you discuss also the definition of success, right? And you say, okay, the whole idea that doing more is, and that's basically what we have in our minds, that success means we have to do more, we have to do it bigger, we have to do better. That is actually not the correct definition of success. So I was really wondering, can you elaborate a bit on your definition of success? And I really liked also the story of the sales meeting you went to, where you also got that very clear
Mm,
insight.
yeah. So to me, I mean, there are so many external awards or check boxes or status symbols or achievements to chase, So many, endless. We could spend our whole lives with the certifications and the degrees and the amounts of money and the stuff and the certain recognition, whatever. And some of that stuff is wonderful. So I'm not saying external rewards are bad in any way, but I think we're a little bit over focused. We tend to be as a culture on external versus a feeling of, so that it's like, oh, I'll be successful when, you know, my business is making six figures, or I'll be successful when I have this much money in the bank, or when I get recognized by this particular publication. And the truth is that for all of us have had these moments of like, wow, you know, getting recognized in this certain way, or having a moment of that kind of recognition. It does feel good. It does. It feels good, but it's fleeting. And then, cause like, it's like, okay, then the ceremony is over. And then it's like, what's for dinner? Right. And then like there's still like laundry, and, you know, so it's just, I think this idea that it's like, okay, once I do X, then I'll be all set. That's the lie. And so in terms of redefining success, to me, it's really getting into how does it feel when I'm successful?
Yeah.
Meaning like, am I excited to get out of bed in the morning? Am I present with the people I love? Do I feel nourished? Do I feel calm inside my body? Am I doing work that lights me up? I mean, those things are really the fuel that will sustain us in our lives, not the outward recognition and those outward trappings of success, which may come from the internal experience of feeling successful. But when you have an internal feeling of being successful that you've defined, those other things are sort of like accessories, but you don't need them so much. They're just nice, but it's like, oh, okay, like, cool. You know, also I love my life.
Hey, and from a perspective of leadership, how do you think we should, like, to what kind of definition of success would you suggest we should move?
I mean, leadership is such a huge topic, right? So before I answer that question, can you, for me, define what you mean by leadership, and then I'll be sure to answer it within the context.
Yeah, sure. So where we are looking into leadership in a very broad perspective. So you don't have to be to work on a top level in a corporate or lead a 7-figure company in order to be a leader. There's well, you first of all, you lead yourself, and then there's also you might lead a family, and then there's leadership in terms of business, right? So of course it's a super broad term, and we also try to approach it quite broadly, because I think that's also important, because how we do things in one area of our lives, we also do it in the other areas of our lives. So
exactly.
Does this help?
Yeah. So to me, you know, success as a leader is really feeling proud of what I stand for, right. Feeling proud of what we stand for, and really that aspect of integrity. Because, like you said, the way we show up in one area of our lives is the way we really it affects everything. It really is that holistic. It touches everything, and so really feeling like, okay, the way I'm showing up in my marriage, like, I would be proud if that was, you know, printed on the cover of the New York Times. And the way I'm showing up with my assistant is, I would be proud of the way that is, you know, just in the same way as the way I'm showing up on social media and the way I'm showing up as a mother. Now, that does not mean that you're going to be proud of how you are leading 100% of the time. Every single day, I do things as a mother that I'm like, oops. You know, or like even in my marriage, like, oops, I could have, you know. And so then I think that another aspect of success as a leader is vulnerability, and being willing to say like, oh, and also vulnerability, but also being really honest with ourselves about our fallibility, knowing that we are going to make mistakes every day. And so it's not about trying to avoid mistakes, because perfectionism is such a trap, but it's about learning to integrate our learning and shift and grow and evolve. So much to me of leadership is really also that aspect of that we're so lacking. Oh my gosh, we're so lacking on the global stage. The conversation really around transformative justice, and how can we hold leadership accountable in a transformative way as opposed to in a punitive way. And that it carries down, into organizations, it carries down into families, into the way we raise our children. It's like macro and microcosms of like, okay, so the criminal justice system is based around punishment. The way the cancel culture happens, in the media is based around punishment. And then we do that to ourselves as leaders when we screw up, and screwing up as a leader is inevitable. Like it's a guarantee that we will screw up.
Yeah, exactly. And has there been any like turning point for you, like where you felt like, okay, I'm gonna look at my personal success in a completely different way?
Just moving into the closet.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
there has been. Actually, recently, I've been really reevaluating my presence on social media, because social media is such an incredible way to reach people and share ideas and connect and, learn. Is so beautiful. And it can also be really toxic.
Right.
And so I was just noticing for myself that I was feeling like I love social media. I love the ability to talk to a lot of people at the same time, especially in a year like this year where like no one's speaking on big stages, right?
Yes.
Not that
Sure.
that's a huge part of my career anyway, but
Yeah.
if it were,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be happening. So it's been interesting to notice, like I realized I was doing so much filtering of what I was going to say through the filter of what do people think I should be saying, or what are people going to think, as opposed to what is genuinely true, because of, I will say, call out culture on social media.
Yeah.
And so I've really set some clear boundaries with myself about my engagement there, so that when I share, and I think this is so important in leadership of in any category, like that when we share, it's coming from a deep grounded place of like what is true for us internally, that of course needs to be informed by what's happening in the greater world, but isn't exclusively based on what other people are going to think, because that trying to decide what to say based on what other people will think really can cause us to squelch our
Yeah.
voices and not share what we really need to share.
No, and it also really touches upon the point of authenticity. I feel like it's really communicating your values in an authentic way, also on this stage. Really, what social media basically is. Um, so how do you do that? Because like what we've learned so far from all the interviews up to now is really that having a clear idea on what your values are, that's one thing, but then being able to to act upon them, to really um yeah communicate them clearly, that's a whole different ball game, really.
Yeah, and what you bring up there is important, because I think there's a difference between identifying your values and communicating them, like talking about them, versus identifying your values and living them.
Right.
And so we all know, right, the phrase actions speak louder than words. And
Yes.
also people, even on the internet, people can feel who you are as opposed to what you say.
Yeah.
And what you say is important, but who you are is far more important. And so when, it's like, I would ask, if you have identified your values, I would go through each one and ask, what does this look like? Like, how can I express this value through my behavior? And I'll give an example. So we have 6 company values in my company, and I read them at the beginning of every team meeting. So it's a very important part of our team culture that we keep the values front and center. And right now we're in a transition in our team. We have this key role that we need to fill. And so right now I've asked our team to really lean heavily on our value of taking radical responsibility. So taking radical responsibility for us means that we are really willing to look at our contribution to any conflict or situation that has arisen, but also we're taking radical responsibility, meaning when we've completed a task, we are really thinking through who's next in line to carry this project forward. And have I really thought through everything they may need? So I'm passing it off as completely and wholly, so they won't have to come back and ask me for a link or ask me where something is or whatever. And so last night, I was communicating with a team member, and I made a comment about something that needed to be fixed that wasn't actually her role. And she said, I actually didn't create that, but would you like me to ping Beth, who did, and communicate that with her? And it was just such a great example. It's so small, but when she took radical responsibility to get it right, even though technically it wasn't her responsibility, but it was she could contribute one little comment to this person and saved me, because I was texting her in my kitchen, right? So my computer wouldn't work. That's a whole other thing. But so that's an example. So go through every one of your values and say, okay, how could I live this today?
Right.
Or how could I live this week? And I can tell you, it is so powerful when you witness and are in the presence of someone who lives their values as opposed to talks about their values.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. That's a huge difference. And Kate, moving into your title of the book, I mean, do less. Well, that resonated a lot with me, but it also triggered because I felt like, whoa, this is so true. But at the same time, I'm ambitious. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do more. I want to do more. So can you elaborate a bit on this? Because what does doing less actually mean?
Yeah. And I just will say, I am very ambitious and I have huge dreams and want to make a huge impact. And
Exactly.
So I am not somebody who naturally, I'm not naturally amazing at resting. I'm naturally a person who's okay, great. And what else? What else can we do? And so, so if you are also listening and you're like that, you're not wrong. We're all, the way we approach life is the way we approach life. And so for me, I don't know if you've done your Enneagram, but I'm an Enneagram 7. And so that's the enthusiast. And so I love to say yes to everything.
I'm an 8.
Oh, you're an 8. I'm married to an 8.
Oh.
Yes. So I know the 8. Yeah. So it really is for me, and part of the reason why my work around Do Less is, an extension of my own personal development.
Right.
My big lesson is sobriety. Meaning not sobriety in terms of substances. That's not been my journey, but sobriety in terms of life, and so it's not about, so here's what's so interesting. Our culture has us kind of brainwashed or indoctrinated to believe that the more we do, so the more things we do in a day, in a week, in a month, the more valuable we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just not true, because I'm sure you and I both know, and everyone listening knows somebody who is extraordinarily busy in their life, but doesn't seem to be getting much traction, right? Like,
Yes.
I live in a very cold climate. And when your car gets stuck on the ice, you can spin your tires really fast and your car looks very busy, but it is not going anywhere. So it's really not about how much we do, but it's about becoming mindful about what we are devoting our precious time and attention to.
Yes.
And really, like, that word devotion is such a beautiful one to infuse into our lives, because when we're fully devoted to something, it's like with our mind, body, and soul and spirit, it's like, okay, wow, we have infinite choices in many ways, limited by a variety of things, but let's pretend we have infinite choices. There's so much we could put our time and attention on. So, and we are each such precious beings, right? We're one of a kind. There will never be another Caroline. There will never be another Kate. There will never be another you who's listening. And so you are a once in eternity experience.
Yes.
You as a human, once in an eternity. And so your time and attention really matters. And it's kind of the difference between gluttony and savoring. So gluttony is just, trying to just like shove everything into your mouth because there's this feeling of like, there's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
Versus when we savor, let's say, like such a beautiful, like a beautiful, flourless chocolate tort or something that, it's just like devoting our time and attention. And that is really such a profound act of self-love, and also allowing life to move through us and just being like, I am here doing this, and I am choosing to be right here. And so to me, that's the difference in the energetics of busyness versus devotion of our time and mindfulness of our time and energy. And what's so amazing is that the more mindful we are and the fewer things we're focused on, the more traction we get. We get better results when we are doing fewer things, because as much as I'm an abundance kind of oriented person, we all just do have a limited amount of energy and time and attention in any given day. And so why not be super mindful about what that goes towards, rather than just like trying to spray it everywhere.
And Kate, you mentioned the element of self-love, and from a personal experience, I also felt like, okay, spreading yourself thin, like doing so many things at the same time, kind of connects to self-love, or maybe even a lack of self-love. How do you see that?
Oh, this one's multi-layered. So first of all, I just want to say that like over functioning and doing too many things can really be it can be a trigger by the fight or flight response. It's I don't know if you've ever heard this quote, but it's like something people put on, bumper stickers and like t-shirts or mugs. It's like something like, Jesus is coming, look busy, or God is coming, look busy. I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
I've never heard that one.
Okay, it's very silly. But underneath it is really the core of this belief that there's like this patriarchal father figure, and he is judging us, and that we better look busy so that we will be judged positively as opposed to negatively.
Right.
Now, that comes from religion.
Yeah.
That comes from, specifically, Christian religion and the more toxic undertones of this belief that there's like an angry man in the sky that's judging us. So, whatever you believe, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, you might want to look at it. And so when it comes to this aspect of self-love, it really requires some unraveling and some deprogramming to give ourselves the gift of doing fewer things and actually being present in our lives, because being present in our lives brings a lot more joy. And it's like an entirely loving experience to say, like, I get to savor this bite of chocolate cake. I get to work on projects that light me up. I get to have clients apply to work with me. And I get to only work with the clients that I really want to work with. Like, I don't have to take crumbs. And that takes a lot of love for ourselves, to stop trying to make somebody else happy, whether it's our boss, our spouse, our mother, God, whatever, and actually say, like, no, I actually get to live by my own compass, and I get to choose the things that are right for me based on how it feels inside my body.
Yeah, so you basically say, define the things that really light you up, that only you love, and then just pick a few and be really present whilst doing them, and also feel that, yeah, basically the gratitude when you do them, because that and I but that also really comes to finding out, what do you really love?
Yes. And really, so when you say choose just a few things, I also want to say that, like, your soul has already chosen. So I don't want you to feel like there's another to-do list on your another to-do item, which is like, oh gosh, now I have to choose the things I love. No. Like, the things you love. And if you don't remember, just think about what you loved doing when you were 9. When you were 8 or 9, what did you love doing then? That's what, when I was 8, my sister and I invented this academy for girls, this pretend academy for girls. And we, like, created this whole, I found this in my mom's basement, this whole, like, dossier of onboarding paperwork about, like, the menu at the school and the schedule at the school, and, like, how to make the most of your experience at the school. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, at the age of 8, I was pretending to do what I do, which is, like, lead communities of women and ensure they have a beautiful, transformative, pleasurable experience. So ask, if you don't remember, ask the people who were around when you were little and find out what that was, because there's, I think it's a Hafiz poem that it's something about, like, God circled a spot on the map for you. That we each, we each have this divine purpose and a specific contribution to make. And more often than not, it chooses you. You don't have to choose it. And if you struggle in this area, I would highly recommend my friend Ra Goddess's book, The Calling, which is a beautiful,
Yes.
beautiful, oh my gosh, she's such an incredible teacher. So check out The Calling. And then it just gets a lot easier because it's like all the static clears, and then it just becomes clear, like, oh no, I'm here to do this. And then you don't really have to use any of your energy to choose anymore. It's like you've been chosen.
And Kate, from a very, well, let's say more pragmatic point of view, you also speak about the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. And can you explain that rule again for our listeners? And what did you find out about it, and how do you implement it on a daily basis?
Yeah, so this is my favorite, because it's so practical.
Yeah.
So the 80-20 rule is Pareto's principle. It says that 80% of your results will come from 20% of your actions.
Yeah.
And it's, like, pretty much 100% true across the board.
Yeah.
It just is. And if you look at your life, or let's, I would take a micro aspect of your life, right? So let's say it's, let's say if you're an entrepreneur, it's getting customers. And if you were to take 10 customers and look at where they came from in terms of your marketing efforts, you would find that 8 of them came from like 20% of the things that you're doing, and 2 of them came from the other 80% of the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And so if the 8 people who came in from 20% of the things, and those 20% of the things are writing your blog and like being on podcasts, then you would want to reorganize so that 80% of your time is focused on the blog and the podcast, and 20% of your time, or none of it, is assigned to all that other stuff you were doing. And this works in parenting, in marriage, in community organizing. It's like, it's just this cool law of the universe. So if you don't know what your 20% is, you can just go write down on a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle of the piece of paper, and on the left-hand side, and just like choose an area. So it could be your revenue, or it could be, your marriage joy, or it could be your like happiness in parenting, or whatever. You can actually do this for qualitative and quantitative things.
Okay.
So on the left-hand side of the piece of paper, you write down the things that you do in that area of your life. Like, what are the tasks that you do? Think of as many as you can. And then on the right-hand side of the paper, you would write down the results that you're after. So it could be, getting customers, or, whatever. It's a little trickier in qualitative situations like your marriage, but like with your marriage, it could be like deep, meaningful conversation, a feeling of joy when your spouse walks in the door, so like you can definitely come up with those things, and then draw a line from the result on the right-hand side of the paper to the task or tasks that are directly related to that result. And what you'll find is you only have lines drawn to about 20% of the tasks, and you'll narrow your list down pretty far and realize like, oh, I don't have to be doing all that other stuff. Or if I do, I don't have to obsess about doing it perfectly, or like I could delegate it or outsource it, or like maybe just stop doing it.
Yeah. That last one is also very good option very often.
It's a very good option very often. I would recommend in all situations, ask first, can I eliminate this? So there are 3 things I always ask before something goes on my to-do list.
Right.
Does this need to be done?
Okay.
Like, does it even need to be done? Maybe not.
Yeah, good question.
But if it does need to be done, great. Okay. Does it need to be done by me? So who else in my life could do this? Could my spouse do this? Could my kids do this? Could my coworker do this? Could my mother do this? Could an app do this? Could somebody on Fiverr.com do this? Could somebody on TaskRabbit do this? Right? And then finally, does it need to be done right now? Because we create a lot of false urgency in our lives. Like, it is very rare, I started off as a blogger. So the thing I say in my company is I'm not actually like, that's not really what I do.
No,
that's not like my whole career, but anyway, that's where I started. And so I'm like, I always say like, there's no such thing as a blogging emergency.
No,
like we're not cardiac surgeons, like in my company. No one is dying from us sending out the wrong link, or like posting something, or like delaying a launch. It's just not. So there was I was listening to a piece of music that had some spoken word, and it was like this low, slow, very serious man voice. And he was like, resist the temptation. What was it? It was like, resist the obsession with urgency. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's usually not urgent. So those are some things to take a look at.
Yeah, there are such great takeaways, and I think this also really relates to the idea that we have to do it like this year or something, but that we like what and I believe this is what Tony Robbins says, right? That we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years or something, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So I guess that, I recognize that feeling of urgency, actually, I mean, that's all in your head. You created yourself very often. Because like you said, it's very often not a
Yes.
real emergency. um and
And what
yeah,
ends up happening, oh,
no, go
sorry, I
ahead.
was going to just say what ends up happening is when we manufacture urgency,
Mm,
what happens is we cannibalize our other projects. So
yeah.
when we manufacture urgency, our projects start to cannibalize each other
Mm,
versus if it's like, okay, I'm focused on these three things and that's it, then everything can really be this beautiful ecosystem. And as opposed to having a parasitic relationship, it becomes a symbiotic relationship where your projects feed each other instead of feed off each other.
yeah, yeah. And Kate, you talk in your book also about managing your energy instead of your time. And I really
Yeah.
love that too. So you identified several areas that can be actual energy drainers, and that can be basically all aspects. But just to give a few examples, right? Work, being a mom, relationships, your extended family, health, finance. And this I really loved. You said first we have to identify the leak, and then we have to change the dance with them. Wow. So I really love that concept of changing the dance. So can you please elaborate a bit on what do you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I want to say I learned this from my dear friend Terry Cole, who's an incredible
Yeah.
therapist and coach. And so Terry taught me personally about changing the dance in my own life in a certain relationship. And I was like, whoa, okay. Because the thing is, everything is in relationship. So we are in
Mm.
relationship with our energy. We are in relationship with people in our life. We are in relationship with our projects. And so the act of witnessing, I don't remember what law of physics this is, but the very act of witnessing something
Hmm.
changes that thing. It
Yeah.
just can't not. Um, like our energy changes anything we're in relationship with. And so if you change, the thing you're in relationship with has to change. It
Hmm.
literally can't not. This is not magic. This is physics. Although I
Yes.
think physics is kind of magic. so so when, let's say for example you realize that your relationship with your sister is draining,
Mhm.
and the way you would know that is you just check in, like every time you spend time with her, you realize like on the way home, you need to drive through Starbucks and get an espresso. It's like, okay, well, that would be an indication, you just, if you're tired all the time after hanging out with this same person or after doing this similar kind of thing,
Mhm.
then that is not serving you, or either that relationship is not serving you, or the way you are approaching that relationship is not serving you.
Right.
And
Right.
and I definitely recommend assessing the way you're approaching that relationship before. A lot of some people, like I think that there are people who stay too long and there are people who leave too quick,
Mhm.
and only you will know which which one of those you are. But if you're one of those people who just like cuts people off, perhaps you may want to just assess, could I change the way I'm relating in this
Mm.
situation? Not can I change this person? Can I
Yeah.
change the way I am relating in this situation, so that not so that this person will change, but so that they might shift the way they're relating to me.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm trying to think of an example of this. I'll just make one up, which is that it's this sort of a conglomeration of a bunch of examples. But like, so let's say you have a client who just is committed to being dissatisfied.
Right.
And this person just is always disappointed right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you may notice that because of this pattern, you show up on the call with this person always apologetically.
Right.
But you could change your side of the dance by and plug that energy leak by showing up in celebration of what's working. So you could actually read a list of what is working about this client relationship, what results has this client received from our work together, and show up on the call grounded in that place. And just notice if instead of joining them in their disappointment, you can elevate to a different place. And that doesn't mean you always will, but something will always shift if you've shifted. And when we begin to notice the energy leaks in our life and we plug them up, we realize how much energy we have for other things. Like your relationship with your sister is affecting your ability to make money. I know they may not seem directly related, but energy is energy. And if one aspect of your life is sucking your energy, and you get that taken care of, you're going to be amazed by you didn't realize that you were running on fumes until that's handled.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that's so powerful because we often don't see that link and we feel like, hey, why is this not working in my career? Or and then it often really also helps to take a step back and see, okay, but what else is going on in my life, in my personal life, in my social life, like what is going on, might influence my career, or the other way around. I mean, I think for a long time we've pretended that there was work and there was private life or something, right?
Yes.
But as if we were like two different people at the same time. But I guess we now find out that that's not true.
Yeah, this year has really, or 2020 really broke that fourth wall.
Yeah.
And I mean, in our conversation, obviously, you know, I've been like running around hiding from my children, and now I'm doing this in the closet.
Yes. And I love that, Kate. I love that.
Yeah. So, you know, all of us, we are all whole humans, and every area of our
Yes.
lives affects every area of our lives.
I would love to go a bit deeper into the cyclical nature of life. The fact that you say, okay, we have been focusing too much on the linear aspect of life, of growth, but actually we're all cyclical beings. Can you elaborate a bit on that and how that also can help our listeners as leaders to live their life really?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So our patriarchal model, and when I say patriarchal, I just mean a model that celebrates one kind of being as normal or better than all the other kinds of being. And that way of being is the masculine, the linear, forward momentum, outward, solar, high energy, results oriented, can be more aggressive, certainly more goal oriented. It's a wonderful energy. Like
Yeah.
the masculine in its highest vibration is a wonderful energy. It's not bad. As a culture, we're just overly identified with it. And so the feminine, and this is not gendered, by the way. So I identify as a woman, as a female. However, I have a lot of masculine energy. So yeah. Okay, great. Just so we're clear on that.
No, but that's a super important point. So I'm glad you explained that, because we're very often mix it up with gender. So
we really do. And you know, my husband is a cisgendered man, you know, heterosexual white man, right? He is like the quote unquote gold standard in the patriarchy. He is really, you know, this hurts. The patriarchy hurts him just as much as it hurts me as a woman, because it has prevented him from embracing the feminine aspects that are so healing, right? Because when we have both, it's so healing. So the cyclical model is more associated with feminine energy. So our culture is very focused on linear growth, linear time. We only have so much time. We're running out of time. We have to make the most of our time. The day is so short. I have so much to do, right?
Yeah.
Cyclical time, though, is really grounded in the way time actually works, which is that time is marked based on the rotation of celestial bodies.
Mm.
So a year is one rotation around the sun. A day is one rotation on the Earth's axis. A month is more or less one rotation of the moon around the Earth.
Mm.
So time actually is cyclical.
Mm.
And we are relating to it. This is very much the difference between like people who think the earth is flat versus people who think the earth is round.
Right.
It's all based on our perspective.
Mm.
And now obviously the earth is not flat. And time isn't either. Time is cyclical. So like
Yes.
as we are headed towards the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
we are headed towards the beginning of the next day, because the end of one day and the beginning of the next day are at the exact same point. And in between those two things is a circle.
Yeah.
There is no end. Essentially, there is no end. And it's so relaxing to just, I created a planner system. So the Do Less planner system based around cyclical time. And one of the elements of the planner system is the daily renewable planner, which is the day as 24 hours in a circle. Right. So it's like, it looks like a big circle. It is a big circle with 24 slices of pie. So as you are going throughout your day, you are not losing time, you're gaining time, because you're coming back to the beginning of a whole fresh day. And the day just sort of like renews itself, like, like rechargeable batteries. Your day is like a rechargeable battery.
Yeah, I love that part in your book where I think it was in a call with your sister, right?
Yes.
That you realized, or how did this go?
Yes, it was with a call with my sister where I was talking about how I have always seen the year as a circle.
Yeah.
Always, like in my mind, I just have always seen the year as a circle. I just thought everyone else did too, until I talked to this woman and she told me that that is not the case, that I have this thing called time synesthesia, where we see time in this specific way. And my sister said, and imagine if you saw the day as a circle too. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. It helps us to relax into understanding that we don't have to rush, and that there are different phases, because the other aspect of cyclical time is aligning with the seasons and aligning with the moon and the different phases. And there are 4 of them. And a woman's body, or anybody who has a period, who will go through these 4 phases as well during the reproductive years. And they are spring, summer, winter, and fall. So, menstruators have these 4 phases every single month. We go through the follicular phase, which is our spring. We go through ovulation, which is our summer. We go through luteal, which is our autumn. And we go through winter, which is our menstrual phase. Yeah. And then, of course, we go through the seasons each year. And then we go through the lunar phases each month as well. And so the linear model is, okay, we should always be in spring or summer. So we should always be starting or launching something. And that's the only right way to be. But actually, the way the planet works and the way the moon works and the way our bodies work, it also embraces wrapping things up, finishing things, and also rest. And those are equally as important as starting and launching. So starting and launching are 2 phases, and then completing and rest are 2 phases. And we need to give them equal credence to balance things out and heal our relationship with work and time.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. And yesterday I was also a bit contemplating on winter, because actually, and you refer to it as rest. I mean, when we look at the winter, especially also in the Netherlands, and I'm pretty sure that's
Yeah.
your place is the same. It
Yeah.
seems like nothing is happening in nature, right? It seems like, hello, is someone there? But actually, so much is going on. And I guess we kind of have the same idea when it comes to rest, that if we are resting, that nothing is happening. But that's so not true. So I think it's all about really changing that perspective really on those, well, on the winter, but also on the autumn, to really also feel for yourself, in what phase am I now? Like how do I feel? Like, am I feeling super springy or summery, or is this more a time to, yeah, go a bit more inward, and maybe just, I don't know, what can you relate those phases also to, when you look at a project? I mean, I know
Mhm.
you do that in your book, but can you also share that with our listeners?
Yeah. So let's say you are putting on a virtual event.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you are conceiving of the virtual event and thinking about it and brainstorming and kind of mapping out, like, okay, here's who I want to invite, here's who it will serve, here's how, like, all of that is kind of the that's the springtime of a project. So it's the
Right.
plan and initiate phase, and I call that in project planning emergence.
Okay.
So this is a concept I came up with called the upward cycle of success, that if we look at our projects with these 4 phases that are the same phases as the seasons, the lunar cycle, and the menstrual cycle, our work will have more power because it's based on how our bodies and the planet actually work. But we won't have the burnout because
Mm,
we're actually working in the way we were designed to work, as opposed to just trying to like invent some other system, which is essentially what the linear model of success is. It's just like somebody just like made it up. So versus working with who we are. So that would be the emergence phase. And then when you are actually, that's all the prep, like plan and initiate. And then there's actually the visibility phase, is when the event is actually happening. So it's, the early states of visibility are when you're promoting the event, when you're inviting, like it's live, people can sign up. And then the height of visibility is when it is actually happening, like the event is happening, everyone's there, da 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 da, and then the event ends, and then you move into the next phase, which is culmination. So culmination is the energy of autumn, it's the energy of the luteal phase, it's the energy of the waning moon. It's when you wrap things up. So it's the time that you would deliver, let's say there was like a PDF or a link that you needed to deliver to the people, or a replay link. You would deliver that to them. You would perhaps take a customer survey, see how the experience was for them. You would go through a post retreat or post event analysis with your team. How did that go? What did we learn from it? Da, 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 da. So that would be the culmination phase. And then the next phase is the fertile void. And so the fertile void was actually first coined as part of the Gestalt by Fritz Perls, as part of the Gestalt, the school of therapy.
mhm.
And so there's multiple meanings, but the way that I use the phrase the fertile void is around really the wintertime energy of a project, where it's just time to pause. Like, you just went through this whole thing and now it's just time to rest. It doesn't mean your business would stop running, but it's like more daily maintenance and just like doing business as usual, as opposed to getting right out. What most business owners do, or most leaders in any kind, is like they finish a project and then they initiate the next project,
Yeah.
and they forget the pause. And the pause is so critical, because what happens is, if we go from finishing a project to initiating the next project without the pause, over time we burn out, and also our ideas stop.
Yeah.
So over time we burn out, and then our ideas kind of start to get shallow and less
Yeah.
impactful. Like
Yeah.
we're not getting traction in the same way with our ideas, because we're just not letting things marinate, and we're not taking that time to reflect, which improves upon our work.
Yeah, so true, Kate. Well, thank you so much for that very clear example. And we're heading to the end, unfortunately. And I have two questions from our listeners. The other questions have been well incorporated in what we've already discussed, but there were two questions specifically on being a new mom or even a new single mom and being an entrepreneur. Do you have any specific advice on that?
Yes. Get over the idea that you are either a better mother or a better business owner if you're doing things by yourself. That is like the biggest lie of the patriarchy, which is that women who do everything themselves are more valuable. It's like this whole thing, it's so tied into the hangover from the time when women were only valued for their ability to give pleasure or make babies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now it's like, okay, also we have all these other possibilities, but P.S. that's been like really recent. I mean, in 1975 in the United States, a woman couldn't even take out a credit card in her own name.
Mm-hmm.
So that was super recent.
Yeah.
So that we are still in this energy of trying to prove that we even deserve to be here.
Yeah.
In the economy.
And pay for our own stuff.
And earn money. And there's still like this unconscious idea that we are taking a man's place. And so because of that, we have been brainwashed to believe that if we ask for help, we are not valuable. Like, because if you're taking a man's place and you're not supposed to be here in the first place, you should be able to do everything yourself and be able to do it 10 times faster and 10 times better, like really like proving that you deserve to be here. But that is a lie that is not helping anybody, including men. And so I would say, as a single mom, as a new mom, as an entrepreneur, get way more support than you ever think you could possibly need. And receive it fully, because the more help you receive, the more you are able to contribute at like your highest level.
And I definitely also recommend to listen to the interview with Kate and Marie Forleo, because there Kate also explains a lot about receiving, because that's also not an easy one. Kate, final question. Is there anything left you want to share with our listeners?
Yes, I want to say that your value is not determined by how much you get done.
Wow. Yeah.
That is really the take home here. Your value is not determined by how much you get done. And the irony is, the less we judge our value by how much we get done, the better leaders we can become.
Wow. That was super powerful, Kate. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and insights with us here on the New Female Leaders podcast. Where can people find you and learn more about you and your work and your books, and tell us all your Instagram handles and Facebooks?
So the first place I would recommend heading is over to katenorthrup.com/list, LIST. And right there, you can grab the free Do Less weekly planning ritual guide. So it is going to help you in just 11 minutes. What studies show is that 11 minutes of planning can save you 2 hours a day, but not planning in the way that you've been taught. So this is a very, very, very different and revolutionary approach to planning. So if you head over there, you'll get that free guide. And it'll walk you through just quick step-by-step how to plan your week in a do less, have more way. And then, of course, everything, you can find me at katenorthrup.com. I write a weekly do less, have more tips for your business and for your life. And you can connect with me on Instagram at Kate Northrup. I show up there throughout the week, and also on Facebook. My Facebook is just Kate Northrup, so you can find me there too.
Cool. And if you have enjoyed as much as I do this amazing episode, then share a print screen of your Spotify or your Apple podcast or wherever you're listening, and share it on Instagram, tag Kate, tag us, so we can share the love and we can share these amazing words of Kate. Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you for listening, and hope to catch you soon in the next episode.
Thank you.